The region of Kashmir, nestled between the borders of India and Pakistan, has long been a crucible of tension, violence, and nationalism. For over 7 decades, the territory has witnessed recurring cycles of war, insurgency, and fragile ceasefires, each iteration reinforcing the deeply rooted animosities between the two nuclear-armed neighbors. The most recent escalation, sparked by a deadly attack in the Indian-administered section of Kashmir, has once again catapulted the subcontinent into the global spotlight. This incident, however, carries an unusually volatile dimension. Pakistan's government has publicly alleged that the attack was not the work of militants or separatist groups, but rather a false flag operation orchestrated by Indian forces themselves. The term false flag, once relegated to the margins of conspiracy theories and covert military strategy, is now being used in official diplomatic rhetoric. Pakistan's foreign ministry has called the attack a deliberate provocation, designed to justify a future military campaign or tighten the grip on Kashmir. The Indian government, on the other hand, has condemned the allegations as baseless, calling them an insult to the memory of the victims and an attempt to deflect responsibility for harboring extremist groups across the border. Between these competing narratives lies a dangerous uncertainty, one that threatens to unravel years of cautious diplomacy and renew the specter of open conflict. The incident occurred during a period already fraught with political stress. India has been preparing for general elections, a time when nationalist sentiments often run high, while Pakistan is emerging from its own domestic turbulence, including military reshuffling and economic hardship. Against this backdrop, the deadly attack has become more than just a tragic loss of life, it has become a geopolitical flashpoint. In the hours following the assault, media outlets across the subcontinent surged into overdrive. Indian channels aired footage of the aftermath, some showing mangled vehicles and grieving families, others calling for strong retaliation. Pakistani broadcasters pushed back, demanding an international investigation and warning of a broader agenda at play. Within 24 hours, hashtags like False Flag Kashmir and Stand with Kashmir trended across both countries' social media spheres, each echo chamber reinforcing its own version of the truth. Amid this information storm, international observers have struggled to piece together a coherent narrative, as both governments continue to harden their positions. To understand the gravity of this moment, one must step back and appreciate the deeply woven history that brought India and Pakistan to this point. The roots of their enmity are tangled in the violent partition of British India in 1947, which not only created two nations but also sowed the seeds of perpetual mistrust over the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir. When the Hindu king of a Muslim-majority region chose to accede to India, Pakistan's nascent leadership viewed it as a betrayal. The result was the first of several wars between the two countries, conflicts that were not just about territory, but about identity, legitimacy, and survival. In the decades that followed, the Kashmir conflict evolved into something more complex. Insurgencies flared, backed alternately by ideology, resentment, or external support. India accused Pakistan's intelligence services of training and arming militants, while Pakistan framed the unrest as a genuine liberation movement. Skirmishes along the line of control became a grim routine, interspersed with diplomatic breakthroughs that often proved temporary. The Kargil conflict in 1999, the 2001 Indian Parliament attack, and the 2008 Mumbai attacks all served as grim reminders of how quickly tensions can spiral out of control. In more recent years, both countries have attempted to build a thin scaffold of stability through trade talks, people-to-people exchanges, and back-channel diplomacy. Ceasefires have been negotiated, if not always honored. In 2021, both sides agreed to a renewed ceasefire along the line of control, which held longer than many expected. Yet beneath the surface, mistrust remained deeply entrenched. The political calculus in both capitals has long relied, at least in part, on the ability to invoke the Kashmir issue to consolidate support or distract from domestic challenges. The latest attack, which occurred near the southern edge of the Kashmir Valley, targeted a convoy of paramilitary forces. Initial reports claimed that over a dozen personnel were killed, with many more injured. Indian authorities were quick to label the incident a terrorist act, suggesting involvement by Pakistan-based groups such as Jaish-e-Mohammed or Lashkar-e-Taiba, organizations with a long history of attacks in the region. Within hours, fingers were pointed, and television studios lit up with fiery debates about national security and vengeance. What made this incident different was the swiftness and sharpness of Pakistan's rebuttal. The Pakistani Foreign Office released a statement within 12 hours of the attack, calling it a tragic event that raises questions about its timing, intent, and orchestration. Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, in an emergency press briefing, cited striking similarities between this attack and previous alleged false flag operations. He further accused India of using such incidents to distract from domestic turmoil and sabotage regional peace efforts. Pakistan's Prime Minister followed up with an appeal to the United Nations, urging the international body to initiate an impartial investigation into the attack. Islamabad also invited representatives from China, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia to review the evidence it claimed to possess, including intercepted communications and satellite imagery. While the authenticity of these materials remains contested, the move signals a deliberate effort by Pakistan to internationalize the issue, a tactic that has often been met with resistance from New Delhi, which considers Kashmir a purely bilateral matter. The Indian government responded with characteristic firmness. In a televised address, the Home Minister dismissed the false flag narrative as an insult to the nation's intelligence agencies and to the martyrs of this cowardly act. He reiterated India's right to defend its borders and warned of consequences for those who shelter terrorism. Several opposition leaders in India also condemned the attack but urged the government not to rush into military retaliation without concrete evidence. However, calls for restraint were drowned out by a swelling tide of public anger and nationalism, fueled in part by incendiary media coverage. Internationally, responses have been muted but concerned. The U.S. State Department expressed condolences for the victims and encouraged both countries to exercise restraint. China, a close ally of Pakistan and an increasingly important stakeholder in the region due to its Belt and Road Initiative, called for a peaceful resolution but refrained from assigning blame. The United Nations offered to mediate, but India predictably rejected third-party involvement. Meanwhile, several independent think tanks and geopolitical analysts have called for transparency, urging both sides to release verifiable data before taking any retaliatory actions. As Pakistan announced its retaliatory measures including troop movements along the border, Air Force readiness drills, and heightened alert for cyber defenses, fears of escalation began to mount. While no direct military exchange had taken place at the time of writing, the situation remains perilously fluid. Analysts warn that even a small skirmish could spiral into a larger conflict, especially given the history of miscommunication and rapid escalation in the region. The memory of the 2019 Balakot airstrikes, when Indian jets bombed targets inside Pakistan and were met with a retaliatory dogfight, is still fresh in the minds of many. The notion of a false flag operation is not new in the lexicon of South Asian geopolitics. The term originates from naval warfare, where ships would fly flags of other nations to deceive enemies, but it has evolved to include covert operations designed to mislead or manipulate public perception. In the context of India and Pakistan, accusations of false flag tactics have surfaced multiple times, particularly after high-profile attacks that precipitate shifts in policy or public sentiment. What makes this recent episode more alarming is the level of institutional endorsement behind Pakistan's claim. Instead of being confined to speculative commentary or fringe theorists, the accusation was delivered through official state channels, complete with prepared dossiers and international briefings. According to Pakistani intelligence sources, the attack bore hallmarks of a stage-managed incident. They pointed to the precision of the strike, the absence of prior intelligence alerts, and the timing coinciding with India's election cycle as indicators of orchestration. They further alleged that some of the individuals initially suspected of carrying out the attack had previously been under Indian custody or surveillance, raising doubts about how they could have executed such a coordinated assault. In one particular claim, a Pakistani spokesperson cited satellite imagery allegedly showing unusual troop movement near the attack site days before the incident, though this evidence has not been independently verified. For India, the allegations are seen as an outrageous deflection. Officials argue that Pakistan has a long track record of harboring terrorist groups, many of which operate openly in its territory. They cite intercepted communications, confessions from captured militants, and funding trails traced back to Pakistani soil. In the Indian narrative, the false flag claim is a desperate attempt by Islamabad to preemptively undermine any international backlash for its alleged complicity. Indian intelligence agencies have reportedly shared their own dossier with allies, including the United States and France, outlining what they describe as irrefutable proof of cross-border terrorism. The media environment, meanwhile, has become a mirror of the political divide. In India, prime-time news anchors have devoted hours of programming to dismantling the false flag theory, often veering into hypernationalism. Segments filled with animated graphics and emotional sound bites portray a unified front against external and internal enemies. In Pakistan, state-run channels and sympathetic private networks have echoed the government's claims, emphasizing the need for global scrutiny of India's actions in Kashmir. Independent voices, in both countries, have struggled to gain traction amid the noise, often drowned out by accusations of being anti-national or sympathetic to terrorists. Public reaction has followed a predictable pattern. In India, there has been an outpouring of grief and calls for justice, with vigils held across major cities. Social media has become a battleground, with trending hashtags both mourning the dead and demanding retaliation. Nationalist groups have organized rallies, some of which turned confrontational, targeting perceived sympathizers or activists who questioned the official narrative. In Pakistan, the public has responded with a mix of outrage and fear, anger at the possibility of Indian aggression, and anxiety over the potential consequences of military escalation. The idea that the attack was staged has resonated with many, particularly among those who have long viewed Indian policy in Kashmir as oppressive and manipulative. Amid the rhetoric and emotion, both militaries have shifted into high alert. The Pakistani army, known for its deep influence over the country's foreign and security policy, has taken a visible stance. Military spokespersons have conducted multiple press briefings, warning India against any misadventure and asserting Pakistan's readiness to respond with full force. Aerial patrols have increased along the border, and field hospitals have reportedly been set up near sensitive zones. While Pakistan has stopped short of mobilizing for full-scale war, the message is clear: any further provocation will not go unanswered. India, for its part, has reportedly reinforced its border positions and placed several air bases on standby. The movement of artillery and armor in key sectors has been observed by satellite imagery analyzed by open-source intelligence platforms. While Indian officials have not openly confirmed the deployment, leaks from within the defense establishment suggest that contingency plans are being updated. The Indian Navy has also conducted maneuvers in the Arabian Sea, perhaps signaling a broader strategic posture. What makes this standoff particularly dangerous is not just the potential for miscalculation, but the broader regional context in which it is unfolding. Relations between China and India remain tense following border skirmishes in the Himalayas, while Pakistan continues to draw economic and military support from Beijing. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC), a flagship Belt and Road Initiative project, runs directly through disputed territory in Gilgit-Baltistan, a fact that India regularly objects to. This means that any military engagement between India and Pakistan risks drawing in China, even if indirectly. Meanwhile, the United States, traditionally a key player in South Asian diplomacy, is distracted by domestic politics and entanglements in the Asia-Pacific. The Middle East also looms as a factor. Countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE maintain strong ties with both India and Pakistan, largely for economic reasons, but their influence has limits. Recent shifts such as the growing closeness between India and Israel, or Pakistan's outreach to Turkey and Iran could complicate traditional alliances. In the past, Gulf nations have acted as back-channel mediators, but it's unclear whether they retain the diplomatic capital to defuse a situation of this magnitude. Against this backdrop, the international community faces a delicate balancing act. Statements calling for restraint are necessary but insufficient. What's needed is a mechanism to verify the facts of the attack and provide both countries a face-saving off-ramp. However, no such mechanism currently exists, and neither side appears willing to accept external arbitration. India has long opposed any third-party mediation in Kashmir, citing the 1972 Simla Agreement which emphasized bilateralism. Pakistan, while occasionally appealing to the UN or the OIC, has often found limited success in generating sustained international pressure on India. The cyber domain has added yet another layer of complexity to this crisis. In the wake of the attack, several Indian government websites were briefly defaced, allegedly by groups based in Pakistan. In return, pro-India hacking collectives have launched DOS attacks on Pakistani infrastructure, according to reports by cybersecurity firms monitoring digital conflict zones. These tit-for-tat operations, while non-lethal, have the potential to escalate misperceptions and widen the battlefield into the virtual world. Moreover, both sides have accused each other of disseminating disinformation online, including deep fakes, AI-generated propaganda, and manipulated videos designed to inflame public sentiment. As days turn into weeks, the world watches nervously. Despite the absence of direct combat so far, the psychological toll is mounting. Civilians on both sides of the border, particularly those living in villages near the line of control, are stockpiling essentials, anticipating evacuations. Schools have been shut in some sectors, and emergency bunkers reactivated. The mood is one of wary anticipation, a haunting familiarity for communities that have lived under the shadow of unresolved conflict for generations. For the moment, diplomatic lines remain open, albeit strained. Back-channel contacts, believed to involve former intelligence officers and third-country intermediaries, are reportedly active. These informal dialogues have, in past crises, played a critical role in de-escalating tensions when official avenues faltered. But their success depends on both political will and credible interlocutors, qualities that are often in short supply during nationalistic fervor. The latest Kashmir incident has once again pushed India and Pakistan to the edge of conflict, fueled by deep mistrust and competing narratives. Pakistan's claim of a false flag operation and India's firm denial have only heightened tensions in a region already burdened by a long, painful history. While both sides assert their positions with conviction, the human cost, especially for the people of Kashmir, continues to grow. In a world increasingly shaped by propaganda and digital warfare, the risk of escalation is greater than ever. Lasting peace will require more than restraint. It demands honest dialogue, political courage, and a willingness to move beyond old hostilities. Until then, the cycle of suspicion and retaliation may remain unbroken.